Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this June the 8th, 2023 Municipal Planning Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I see that all of MPC is present, so there's no need for an excused. The minutes from May the 25th, MPC, how do you wish to handle them? Lynette.
Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Any further comments? All in favor of Lynette's motion? That is carried. Call for post-agenda items. Is there any items to add? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the agenda. Amanda moves acceptance of the agenda as presented. All in favor of that motion? That is carried. Subdivision 6.1. Maria or Zachary? Zachary, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, subdivision application 2023-0-006 is a proposal to create one new 1.05 hectare or 2.6 acre lot from the 4.03 acre, 9.96 acre, lot 1, block 1, plan 791-1008. The proposed subdivision is located in Division 8, adjacent to Highway 544, is 0.9 kilometers east of Highway 36, and is approximately 6 kilometers southwest of Dutchess. A review of the Alberta wetland inventory indicated that except a small pond, there are no wetlands present on the subject parcel, and there are not environmentally or historically significant areas within the subject parcel. The AR indicated that there are no abandoned wells on the parcel. The septic fields on both the proposed and remainder parcels meet the required setbacks as per the Alberta Safety Code standards. The minimum setbacks as per the land use bylaw, the residential rural district, are met. And there are 2 development permits on the subject parcel. DP 1980-035 is for the house with the attached garage on the proposed parcel. And then DP 2007-137 is for the second dwelling, or Red Roof Studio, which was approved for use as an art studio and living quarters. And as a result of the subdivision, that second dwelling will become the principal dwelling of the remnant parcel. Comments from circulation. There were no comments from adjacent landowners. Alberta Health Services, ATCO Gas, and TELUS Communications responded they had no objections to the proposed subdivision. Alberta Transportation and the Eastern Irrigation District had no objections and supplied the attached letters. Reserve is not required as per MGA section 663D, as it was provided as part of the original subdivision in 1977. And the subdivision recommendation is to approve with conditions. And the proposed subdivision is consistent with the South Saskatchewan Regional Plan and complies with the County of Newell Municipal Development Plan and Land Use Bylaw. And the subdivision authority is satisfied that the proposed subdivision is suitable for the purposes for which the subdivision is intended pursuant to Section 7 of the Subdivision and Development Regulations.
Great, thanks, Zachary. MPC, how do you wish to handle this application? Are there any questions? Holly.
Good morning. I just had a question as to the shape of the lot. Was there a reason that they went past that tree line? Was it for size? It's just unusual how it juts out into that land.
Go ahead, Zachary.
There's no justification given for that size, but the size of the lot does fall in line with the or between the minimum and maximum parcel size for the residential rural district.
Mm-hmm. Holly.
Could you refresh me on what the minimum size is?
Yeah, the minimum size is 0.4 hectares.
Neil.
I think this is pretty straightforward. I'll move that we adopt it.
As recommended?
As recommended with conditions.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of Neil's motion? That is carried. Thank you. Yes, Holly.
Would it be appropriate to ask people why they're making the lots the way they are? We're seeing some unusual sizes sometimes coming through in shapes. Be interesting to know what people are planning just for helping our decision making, I think. Is that appropriate, not appropriate?
Go ahead, Maria.
I think that's definitely something we could request from the applicants, just a justification for their proposed boundaries.
Thanks. Okay, I want to first of all apologize to our audience for not doing introductions. I think we all know each other pretty well by now, but we do have some online viewers that don't have the opportunity to see who all's in the audience. So let's do a round of introductions before we move on to the next item, 7.1. And Lynette, we'll start with you today.
Changing it up, I wasn't ready. Hi, Lynette Kopp, Division 3. I'm the Patricia Millicent area. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Fumble Fingers, and no mess over here. Dan Short, Division 1, Rolling Hills.
Good morning, Nadina Scandra, Division 2, Tilly area.
Holly Johnson, Div 4, Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City. Good morning.
Morning, Matt Fensky, County Administrator.
Morning, Arno Dirksen, Division 9, the gym area.
And I'm Kelly Chrisman, Division 6, which is on the west side of the county.
Good morning, Greg Screever, Division 5, Lake No Resort and Castles.
Good morning, Ellen Unruh, and I represent the countryside around the village of Rosemary.
Good morning, Amanda Philpott, Division 8, Duchess.
Neil Johnson, Division 10, Brooks.
We'll go to Zachary, and then Zachary, if I could get you to help us pass the microphone, that would be great. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Zachary Forrest, the Municipal Intern for Planning and Development.
Maria.
Hello, I'm Maria Jackson, the Supervisor of Planning and Development.
Cheryl Page, Planning and Development Administrative Assistant.
Good morning, Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin.
And Jeff will pass.
Jeff Tefton, Manager of Planning, Development and Engineering.
Well, Harry Hunt.
Jane Romanovich.
Kim McClellan, Lake Mill Resort.
March, Lake Mill Resort.
Eric Hudel, Sandpiper Storage.
Greg Hardy, Lake Mill Resort.
Jay Phillipson, Lake Mill Resort.
Wonka Grobelaar, Lake Mill Resort.
Salma Grobelaar, Lake Mill Resort.
Holly Hassel, Lake Mill Resort.
Bill Endersby, Lake Mill Resort.
Mark Harvick, Director, Municipal Services.
Great, thank you very much. And we do know each other. So I'm going to start off by inviting Mr. Hugel and Mr. Archer up to the front to start this conversation off. It's a carry forward from 30 days ago approximately, so it's a little bit different than usual. I'd like to ask the question how the past 30 days has allowed communication to happen and progress that has been made between the two. Mr. Hugel, I'll start with you. It's your application.
Good morning, MPC. So we received the architectural controls from the HOA about 2 weeks ago. And the HOA made themselves available to meet last night. So we've had a discussion. I'd still say we're discussing and in negotiations at this point.
Anything to add, Mr. Archer? Yeah, you're on.
I think that we're going to have quite a number of discussions between Hugo and Terry about this moving forward. We have some ideas. The Homeowners Association and the community is still very much against developing this property in the form that it is. We've expressed that. So we're kind of back and forth. I don't know if you had a chance to review the architectural controls that we've created. We passed a resolution and passed those architectural controls before we sent them over to him. The next process, of course, would be having legal counsel submit them to land titles with the restrictive covenant and remove the previous one, which is not applicable to a commercial site. So that would be our next step, I suppose. That being said, the last time when I was building my house, land titles is between 6 and 8 months behind. So before, so it's going to take a long time before that occurs. So that might be a barrier that we're going to have to face in the next little while. Outside of that, all I really want to do is ask a couple of questions of the committee and express a couple of requests with respect to if you decide to go ahead with issuing the permit. We have some requests for your consideration with respect to the construction site itself and what's going to be built there. And then that's it, really. I mean, I think we've talked about this back and forth and expressed our position. There are other people here that may want to talk that are actual residents of the community as opposed to not on the directorship of the board. So if you could, I don't know if there's somebody else that wants to chat or not, but I'll get my little blurb out of the way. And of course, if Eric wants to kind of have a rebuttal to some of our requests, that would be appropriate, and we'll move on from there.
Go ahead. And then I'll open it up for comments and questions from MPC.
Right, so I guess the first question I have is with respect to County Bylaw 2.8, would you be able to advise me whether the application permit was complete and included the Sandpiper Estates restrictive covenant listed on this certificate of title? Additionally, have you provided the applicant with a notice of completeness? And if so, I was wondering if you could provide me with a copy.
Just for clarity, provide a copy of your HOA covenants?
No, a notice of completeness. So as part of the bylaws, that's required that you serve the applicant with a notice of completeness with respect to his application. So I'd like a copy of that for my records.
Maria. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The notice of application and when an application is deemed complete is something that we send directly to the applicant. That notice of completion ensures that everything is required, that everything the Development Authority is requesting and requires from the developer has been submitted. That's not something that we have ever in the past sent to any adjacent landowners or affected parties. As part of the application, we do pull a new certificate of title, and on that title, any caveats or restrictive covenants or anything on the title is then discussed with the developer, and they're made aware of what is on title as they've provided that to the Development Authority.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity. Mr. Archer, next.
Under section 2.13 of the bylaws, it's called Decisions of Development Permit Applications, with respect to the discretionary use, the county may refuse the application for a discretionary use even though it meets the requirements of the bylaw. We ask that the Planning Committee refuse this application since the adjacent landowners and numerous others in the community are opposed to this land development permit, and this proposed development will unduly interfere and affect the use, enjoyment, and value of our neighboring parcels of land. So That's just one thing I would like you to consider. So that was under section 2.13 of the bylaws. Under section 2.20 of your bylaws, conditions attached to the development permits, the development authority may impose conditions for a discretionary use of this land. As a homeowners association, we formally request that the planning committee impose the following conditions on the development permit should it actually be issued. The conditions that we request are as follows. That the applicant fences the site during construction and subsequent operation. I think the reason behind that is not so much for security on part of anybody's behalf or anything like that. It's just that whenever we have construction in the neighborhoods, we have garbage flowing places, and we're concerned about that ditch, the water, and our properties with respect to any garbage blowing from that side of the, because the wind just blows like crazy up there, 80, 90 kilometers an hour, and it'll blow all that construction stuff onto our sites. And it happened with my house, so I was actually going down to the lake and picking stuff off the ground every weekend during the entire construction process of my house, framing process, so that I could prevent it from going into the water. So I think that's a priority.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be a permanent fence, it just needs to be fenced, okay? The applicant paves the parcel of land is our next one, and the roadway that goes to the proposed entrance of the property. I think that if we're going to have this occur, I think we want some paved access to that building so that people aren't just driving on gravel and throwing dust up, et cetera, and then the gravel's pushing out into the ditch and pushing out into the road. Secondly, and this is a minor thing, but mitigate noise in some way, dust and other nuances during the construction and operation, and to set out a plan to do so in writing. And that the applicant complies with the restrictive covenants concerning architectural controls and or landscaping as set out by the Sandpipers Homeowners Association. Now that comes with some complexities, of course, but that would be our request. And then last but not least, that the applicant complies with landscaping and fencing requirements as per sections 3.32 through 3.39 of your bylaws. Moving on, under section 3.2, servicing, under your bylaws, we formally request that the county ensure that the building be serviced with water to allow for proper cleaning of the exterior of the building and paved lot. And then under section 3.6 of your bylaws, that the county may require specific finishing materials and colors to be used to be compatible with the surrounding or adjacent developments. As this development is very close to residential homes, we ask that the planning committee impose that the proposed development include a similar building design, character, and appearance to building materials used in the immediate area of the development. Now that's basically the wording that comes out of your bylaw, and it is vague, and that is why we have our architectural controls created, so we can be a little more specific with respect to that. Secondly, if you've had a chance to review our architectural controls, you might see that they've been designed for light commercial for that lot, which would be appropriate as opposed to designing them specifically for what this permit is all about. So we didn't start going into self-storage specifically, but we designed those architectural controls in and around what would be required in any municipality, essentially, with respect to light commercial in a residential area. And then as per 2.22B, we formally request that the planning committee obtain a security in the amount of 125% of the estimated cost of construction to ensure compliance with the conditions of the development agreement. That's, I think, quite important to us. That security can come in a number of different, and that would be another question is for these types of permits, do you insist on obtaining a security in that value as per the bylaws? And do you enforce that aspect of your bylaw?
Maria, technical question. I'll let the experts handle it.
The bylaw does allow, the land use bylaw does allow for 125% of the construction costs be taken as security by the county, which then once the development agreement has been met and all the conditions have been met, then that security can be returned as per our procedure for development agreements. This has, the 125% is new in this land use bylaw, so we haven't done that yet. MPC does have the ability to take up to 125%, so whatever they feel is appropriate in this instance. And then the development agreement can be created based on what MPC decides they'd like to see and be able to enforce going forward.
Thank you.
The reason I ask that is that it's going to take 6 to 8 months, like I said, if not even longer, to get our architectural controls in place. By then, this building may be built already. So there's that legal challenge with respect to that aspect of this thing moving forward. You know, and I don't, you know, I can't blame anybody for this issue. But, you know, I think that's incumbent upon, and I didn't read into the bylaw that it would be up to. Maybe I misread that, but it seems like it's guaranteed at 125% is what's required. But I don't have the bylaw in front of me, but we could look it up if you wish. And then the final thing here is under 3.32, landscaping of the new development. The permit application should include, in our view, a landscaping plan in accordance with this section. It's my understanding that the building is just going to be set down on probably gravel, and there was no plan in this development permit application for any sort of landscaping associated to it. And typically when you have a commercial development, it's all laid out in terms of a plan to include appropriate landscaping for the area. So anything, you know, around that paved area would have to be at least looking reasonable to, as opposed to a big garage sitting on a piece of land. And that would be my submission. And I'm available, of course, for any questions, and then I can call it a day.
Thank you. All right. So, Mr. Hugel, if I may ask, were you given a list of these conditions before this meeting, or are you first hearing them now?
These conditions specifically, this is the first I'm hearing of. As I did mention before, we did receive the architectural controls 2 weeks ago. Again, I guess we take issue with the fact that those were written after the fact, written after our development proposal was put forward. But again, I don't think that's something that will be
We're not here to enforce or endorse HOA rulings. Those are a personal item on the property. So that is clear to MPC that HOAs are not our purview here today. Holly has a question.
I'm a little surprised we're at this morning. I guess my hope was when we put this over for 30 days was for everyone to come together and to make progress. And it feels like today we've actually gone backwards because we're here with a whole list of things that are now wanted, and you had a meeting last night. It doesn't look like any progress was made, so I'm not sure why we adjourned it for a month to make progress when it appears that we haven't seen any progress. Am I missing something?
You're going to have to reply to this one because, so we tried. Eric wants a building on there, and he has a business plan with a very lengthy payback period. We don't want the building there. We don't want anything there. So it's such a significant difference. You know, we were met with Terry, this is not Eric, this is Terry, his business partner, with threats of litigation. So we're kind of at a standstill with respect to that. So we're waiting here to determine whether or not he gets his permit. If he gets his permit, we have some decisions to make. Number one, whether or not we're going to appeal the decision, or number two, whether or not we're going to try other options. And we have some options, and it's not something you guys can consider. We have other options that we're going to be considering as per next steps. And we are going to continue to talk and chat. I mean, yesterday was The earliest that we could get together as a group, because we're all busy people, unfortunately was the night before this event, but that's all we can do. I don't know if that answers your question, Ms. Johnson.
So, so just for my second question, I'm just on your list when you were going through there. You said something about construction and the noise, that they need to do something about the noise. Is that something you require of all construction that goes on out there?
I don't think so. Is there some, Holly? Yeah, I mean, 10 o'clock at night, you know, I mean, these things we can discuss with Eric, of course, in the future. You know, we can put, you know, a 9 to 5 type or 8 till 5 type of thing, of construction time or whatever. But I mean, construction is construction. People have to renovate and build houses out there. That's not a huge concept. I'm a little concerned about the garbage and stuff like that. I don't want that stuff floating into the lake or floating into the waterway that wraps that place. So I don't know if I can be any more clear.
So my other question is, just to be clear, because we gave you a month to work something out, but what you said earlier, you're totally against this. So there really isn't any way of working this out. So we could have made a decision a month ago, like you're against this no matter what. So if this doesn't work, there'll be something else. So we're kind of done. Is that what you're saying?
I think that would be putting words in my mouth that I didn't say. I do think that Eric is on board with some discussions with respect to how we're going to move forward. The thing is that the architectural controls are going to be too expensive for him to put a building up. So although if we put a building up as per our architectural controls, you know, we're probably going to be in much better shape with respect to our community in terms of, you know, we have some landscaping in there. We have appropriate building that looks really, really nice. We have some pavement going in there eventually during this construction phase. I think it would look really nice at the end of the day, and everyone would probably be able to live with it. However, he's told us that it's just unreasonable and not affordable, and the payback period would probably be way too long, I would expect, for him to go through with what we require. And as I said, these architectural controls are based on what any municipality would put in place for something of this nature within a residential area. And I've taken much of it from Calgary, in fact, because a lot of that stuff is public. So yes, I mean he's stuck. We're stuck in terms of we don't want this. And I think that I think that all you really need to focus on is what is before you in terms of what the community wants or does not want, and whether or not you're going to allow this development permit to go through based on your you know, your requirements under your bylaws and under your development plan. Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're fully aware of what our responsibilities are. I have a question here from Arno next.
Just to follow up, Mr. Archer, I understood you to say that you don't want anything on that site. I think those were your words just now, and I guess I don't know, you know, where do we go with that? That's a bit of a, like, regardless of what the development on that site would be, we would be facing this situation, which is a difficult one.
Agreed.
And if that's the case, that probably is important for us to know that, because then we might as well get this out of the way pretty quickly.
The biggest thing, Mr. Dirksen, here is that what we're fearful of is a fenced-in compound full of RVs. Now, we're not here to discuss that because that's not the actual piece before us today. We don't want what we already have there, which is a real mess, down on the other side at the north end. Now, that being said, what he's planning on putting there is a shed that's 145 feet long, as we know, with a couple of different colors on it. We don't want that either. So whether somebody at some point wants to buy that lot or develop something else there, the likelihood of that happening is pretty slim. No one's going to put a store there right now because we don't have a large enough community to support it. Nobody is going to put another type of business there, so it's not even worth even thinking about. There's no water to it right now. There's no sewer to it right now. It would be way too expensive and ridiculous to put anything there. It's just it's a field. What we would like to see there one day would be a tennis courts, because it's dry land, or pickleball, or maybe a hockey rink, an exterior hockey rink, something recreational, or even a park, maybe even a dog walking park. That's the type of thing that's not going to make any money for anybody, but it could be part of the community. So, I mean, those are the things we're considering for the future for that land. Should it ultimately go back to the MR, or ultimately become private land where somebody can donate money to create something like that, or a group of us could potentially donate money to create something like that. No, we are not interested in having anything back there. We think it's ridiculous. It's a terrible location for any sort of commercial location of any type of light industrial or light commercial use.
And just to be clear, it never was MR. It's always been an industrial lot. So I just want that to be clear. Neil, go ahead.
Yeah, do you have you're talking about what you're proposing and what the architectural controls, what's the cost difference between the two? Like, is it 25,000, 50,000?
Oh, I have no idea what that would cost. We're talking about putting 20% masonry on the front and back and windows on his building. That would be the actual change to the building. So windows in each garage door, and then windows across the back, which would be narrow and sitting on the top of the building, which would change, and then also a deviation in the back of the building, so that there would not be just one flat panel, so we don't have, you know, a grain bin tipped over on its sign type of thing. That would be very expensive. You know, I don't know, you know, it would be probably $40,000 for the brick, if not $50,000 for the brick alone to put it on the back. I think paving is reasonable. To pave a lot that size, I'm just guessing, anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000. With respect to some of the other things, you know, and you're going to be facing that no matter what type of building you're going to be putting on there. You're going to need parking, you're going to need landscaping, you're going to need all sorts of things to make that lot a viable place to have any sort of decent business. You can't just put a building up there and not have it paved and you know, have gravel in, and we're not living like that out there. So yeah, I mean, it's going to cost him a hell of a lot of money to do that, and I don't know what his return on his investment would be. I have no idea. And but you know, all I can say is that what we want is something that would be required of any municipality in the city of Calgary or something outside the city of Calgary.
Greg, and then Mr. Hugo.
So just to let MPC know, the homeowners out there, when you build a new house, go through extensive architectural controls. I know that because I built a house out there, and it is extensive. The cost of building a normal home, say in Brooks or anywhere else in the county, is significantly more. And every one of us have gone through those architectural controls in order to build our houses. So now we're at a point where we are approving or disapproving a discretionary business, a discretionary use of a storage facility in and around houses that have gone through extensive architectural controls. And the building that is proposed is a tin building. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. It doesn't fit the houses around it. It doesn't fit basically the neighborhood. If you go out to Brooks, you go to Calgary, you go to any other center that has new housing development, you're not seeing any kind of storage facility built in and around those houses. You wouldn't see that. You see it in the outlining areas, the industrial areas of the city, the town, or the hamlet. So just want you aware of that. We're dealing with bigger type of issues here in the county. I know that this is really the only place that would have these issues. We're having to make that decision. They make these decisions in the cities all the time. If a retail store, a retail building, or a strip mall wanted to go up, they would have to follow these architectural controls so it fits the neighborhood. Okay.
Thank you. So you're speaking in favor.
So in that case, I'm speaking against approving this, against approving it because of those reasons. This discretionary use is not in line.
Thank you for that. MPC, anybody else? Questions, comments? Oh, Mr. Hugel, yes, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I guess just a couple things that I've heard and just want to speak to. You know, in terms of, and I think it's already been said, is the HOA wants nothing there. At the end, they want us to do nothing with that lot. Again, you know, I don't want to use the word fair, but you know, we've come to the county with what I believe to be a reasonable proposal. We're not building an outdoor storage lot. We're not putting RVs all over the place. That is not what we've come to the county with. There are places, I mean, the marina is not paved. There are other places that are not paved. So I think there's a very lofty wish list for us that does make it very challenging for us to do something with an unserviced lot. What we've come to you with, I believe, is a reasonable proposal for what is available on that land. And again, it's, you know, it's a 10-bay storage building. It's not something that's this massive monstrosity that's going to be busy 12 hours a day. We've been dealing with Armor Building, a reputable builder within the county. You know, they are going to do their due diligence when they're building it. So it's a little, puts us in a tough position in terms of what can we reasonably do with this land when we have all of these asks put before us in terms of developing this plot. And I guess I would just pose one question to the county is if this doesn't go through, what would they like us to then do with that property?
Thank you. And that's not our decision. You are the landowner. Mr. Phillipson, you came forward. Mm-hmm. Now it is, yeah.
Great. Just wondered if the committee feels a need to review the implications to the northern leopard frog? No? Okay.
Thanks.
No, I just had, you know, my point is here, I'm not opposed to development. I am opposed to the potential impact on property values. Just reading from the same letter I had sent a month ago, my concern is I'm planning to build a house directly adjacent to this proposed development. Given the other storage unit or facility in the hamlet, it's the only subdivision that has absolutely no houses built on it. Mm-hmm. And I believe that's a direct result of being adjacent to the storage facility. Given any other options, I think people would use that as the last place to build. So it's a big deterrent. So I have a feeling if I would build a house there and then the storage facility would be put up, I would likely lose a significant value in my property.
Anything new, Mr. Phillipson? We would like to move forward with new stuff.
Sure, yeah.
If we haven't heard something.
I had one question and basically just want to refresh, you know, the points made in my letter, but for my own clarification, what is the purpose of the discretionary use decision-making ability from the committee? Is that to follow the municipal development plan, or is that to, you know, put it as a personal opinion to the committee members?
Maria, thank you.
A discretionary use in the land use bylaw is a use that could be a good use for a parcel that's zoned that way. It may need conditions placed on that development in order to be better suited for that specific parcel where it is, or in some cases it may not be suited. It's at MPC's discretion.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, and is the MPC, oh, sorry, Holly.
I'm chairing, so I would like you to finish. Thank you.
Is the MPC then, I guess, in there, are they mandated to the MDP then, or is it, again, you know, personal opinion based on their area?
We form our opinions based on all the statutory documents.
Okay.
You know the process. You were telling us all about it at the last meeting, so
yeah,
you've got it, Mr. Phillipson.
Okay, yeah.
All right, anything else new today?
No, nothing else new today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Holly, you had a question?
I just wanted to clarify, Maria, that we are approving the building as it is. That's it. That's all. There can't be anything else parked there. Is that correct?
Maria?
The application is for an indoor storage lot with no outdoor storage. The application is for it not to be fenced on a gravel site. So that is the application in front of Municipal Planning Commission. Because it is discretionary, conditions can be placed at the discretion of MPC.
Lynette.
What is our responsibility to nod to the HOA criteria? Like, do we have any responsibility to make sure that that happens, or is that all between Mr. Hugo, the landowner, and the HOA? Like,
would you like me to answer it or staff? Go ahead, Maria.
The county has the responsibility to make sure the developer is aware of anything that is on title. When it comes to MPC making a decision, MPC needs to consider the statutory plans and the land use bylaw. They can take into consideration what is on title, but that anything placed on title by the homeowners association is the homeowners association's to deal with directly with the developer.
Ellen.
I agree with Greg's earlier comments. The proposed development is a light industrial, commercial, if you will, development, and it's just not compatible with the houses in the area. And the location is just not suitable to me, and therefore I will vote against this.
Oh, please come forward, Mr. Endersby.
I've noticed that in a few industrial areas, they have catchment ponds for runoff. And since this particular lot is adjacent to, and the drainage goes into a wet area, wetlands, which has a berm between the catchment pond and Lake Newell of maybe 1 or 2 feet. So if they get a substantial rain, the wetlands will then drain into Lake Newell, which is the water supply for Brooks and pretty well quite a bit of the other areas. So my question is, I'd like to see a environmental study added as a condition of the development permit so that there is no excess waters or oils or anything, I don't know, coming off of these whatever's in this storage area or traversing across this storage area, because there's a drain ditch all the way around it going right into the wetland area. So I would like to make sure that the drainage is looked after and also that an environmental review is done. everybody gets a big smile on their face when they say that, you know, there's some frog out there that's endangered or whatever. But I'd like to see an environmental review and a catchment.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you. Mr. Hugo.
If I can speak to that. I did reach out to a senior biologist with threatened species at risk with Alberta Environment. They made a couple points. I submitted exactly what I've submitted to you to them. And I think he came back with a couple points. If I can summarize, you do have the letter there. But given the substantial development that is already in the area, he said there should be no concern. Again, we're talking a building here, no different than a building that would be a house. We speak of runoff and all these things, and I think that's being blown a little out of proportion in terms of this is simply a building with things inside of it. So we're talking rainwater, which would be the same as any of the houses there. In terms of the ditch, there is the municipal reserve in between us and that ditch. There are residential homes that are closer to that ditch. And I think if one of the other things that was brought forward by the biologist was that if there were to be an assessment, it would need to be requested by the county. But I think that same standard should then be applied to homes that are closer to the ditch, if that is the standard that MPC would like to impose.
Thank you. Any other, Adina?
Well, I just would like to say I'm disappointed we gave them another month and we seem to be at the exact same spot. We just gave them more time to make it difficult. So I'm ready to make the motion that we approve the development permit with conditions.
And those conditions, are they the conditions laid out?
As listed on option 1, yes. A fence, planting trees, and no outdoor storage.
Any further comments, questions, MPC? Dan?
Did the applicant intend on putting a fence, or was it intended to be open?
Go ahead, Mr. Hugo.
In our development permit, there is no fence. I personally believe that would be worse to look at, a chain link fence, than a standalone building. I would not want to look at a chain link fence, and I think that is some of the concerns that were brought forward with that other storage lot, and that is not part of our proposal, and personally not what we would want with that proposal.
Arno?
Just a follow-up question for the homeowners. I think I heard that if the homeowners association was requesting that if this was approved, they would like a fence around it. Yeah. Is that correct? Mr. Archer, I think you commented on that, and we just need to be clear.
Mr. Archer, you need to come to the microphone. We have online viewers and they can't hear you without the microphone. Thank you.
Just to clarify that issue of the fence, we would just want to fence up the temporary one at the minimum to hold back any garbage during the construction. The architectural controls are say, if you put a fence up, this is what we want it to look like, but no, we don't yet necessarily need a fence there with respect to that.
Okay, thank you, that helps.
I will amend my motion that there is no fence, because I agree, no fence would look nicer than a chain link fence.
Yeah, okay. Cheryl, you're good? Okay. Mr. Phillipson, something new?
Yes, something new. I just wanted to comment on Mrs. Scandrup's motion. If she would have to put trees on the lot, I would like to see more details on what that would look like. Does that mean 2 trees or more? I would like to have a detailed plan included so that we are comfortable with what the expectations are for that.
That's not typical that we have a detailed view. Do you want is that part of your motion?
Well, part of my motion was planting some trees.
Okay.
you know, now we're going down the rabbit hole. What kind of trees? How big are they going to get?
Yeah.
Like that's.
Maria, you had a comment? Thank you.
I was just going to say that trees are not a recommended condition. So if that is something that you would like placed on the motion, then a little more detail would be great.
So we have a dilemma here. We have a dry lot. How are they going to water these trees? Just, Dan.
That's all in the homeowners association architectural controls. There's actually quite a detail of what kind of trees they would have to plant and whatnot. And I think we should let that be between the developer and the HOA to settle all that stuff out. The way I look at it, this is this development application is what we would typically approve. All the boxes are checked, and there's no real reason why we shouldn't allow it to go ahead. And everything else that's being discussed is between developer and HOA. It's not for us to decide. If those architectural controls come in too strong, then that's their decisions to be made. It's not ours. So I think maybe we should take the planting the trees out of there. The no outdoor storage, I believe, is important for us to put in. So I'd like to see the motion be that we approve it, with the only condition being that no outdoor storage be allowed there.
We will speak to the mover about that.
All right. I'll amend my motion again to the only condition being no outdoor storage.
Maria?
I apologize, Councillor Scandrep. In discussions with Municipal Services, a development agreement would be required for the road approach to ensure that that's built to county standard. So that is another recommended condition from staff.
Okay. So we will add that.
All the recommended conditions, sorry.
Adina, we have a list of recommended conditions.
Yes. Exactly what Dan just said.
Oh my, I didn't, you'll have to say it.
So as Maria said, conditions for development.
Maria?
If you'd like, I could read the conditions that are recommended. The development must be located as shown on the site plan approved with the application and submitted April 3rd, 2023. It must be built according to the description provided. Any changes shall require the written approval of the development authority. That the proposed development complies with all federal, provincial, and municipal statutes, regulations, codes, and standards. The applicant owner must obtain all construction permits applicable to the development and is responsible to ensure all permits are closed with work complying with the building code. That the applicant must enter into a development agreement for the upgrade to the road approach. This one will be changed slightly so that no privacy fence, so no outdoor storage is permitted. The parcel and the bays are only used for storage, and the setbacks are maintained as per the land use bylaw.
Thank you, Maria. Adina, is that your motion?
That is exactly my motion.
I thought, okay. We have come to a motion. Neil has a question.
We partially dealt with this last year when we set up the municipal reserve. And then we've already paid for trees and an irrigation system directly on the east side of this. Wasn't that originally your request to stop this development from going through? Because I remember the county to hide it, but I mean, that's already done. If it's not done, it's not our fault because.
Ms. McClellan.
We requested that, yes, as if the development were to go through, we could start developing the parks, developing our MR as a park, also as providing a visual barrier as well as like even barrier between, sorry. And we haven't gone forward with it yet because we're waiting to see what's going to happen with this, right? We're waiting, we're going to develop it no matter what with the funds that we're given, but we haven't started yet because we're waiting to see what's going to happen.
Well, that's why it kind of took me back when this whole thing, like, it's too bad where we're at, but we are, so we'll deal with it. But we thought we dealt with this last year with the visuals. We committed to trees, listened to all your complaints. And I think we settled them exactly the way you wanted. And it comes as a bit of a surprise when he goes to put the shed up, shed building, whatever you want to call it. This is the result we get.
Okay, thank you. Am I allowed to respond to that comment?
If you have something new.
That's something new. Regarding, like, the proposal as it is, we are, like, personally, I am against the proposal as it is. I'm not against it if, for what Connell spoke to earlier regarding putting in certain architectural controls. So it's not like we're not able to be, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not
and
like,
you'll have a chance to deal with that as an HOA. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
We're not here to change that at all.
And the thing is whether regarding the money for the space there, no matter what is put in that lot beside the MR space, we'd still want to develop our MR as a recreational space anyways for our community.
Good. So that's something new. We're learning that recreation money has been given to Lake Newell Resort for that MR spot. That's awesome. Okay, thank you. Greg.
Yeah, and remember that that lot is still a commercial lot. It's still zoned commercial.
The one in question.
Yeah, it's a discretionary use is storage facility. It can still be a commercial building can still go there as long as it fits within the guidelines of the land use. So remember that any money that was given to the Hamlet board for developing that MR is because of that lot is still for commercial use.
Thank you. Okay. Neil.
Yeah, it was given because a shed was going to go there and they wanted a barrier. We didn't just walk out and say, here's $20,000, go plant some trees. There was a reason for it, and we dealt with it.
Okay.
Right?
All right, we have a motion that is separate from the MR, has nothing to do with the MR. You guys can talk about that later. Are there any other comments from MPC on the motion? I am going to call the question. All in favor of the motion before us, please indicate. And opposed? The motion is carried. Back to our agenda. Item 7.2. We thank you all for coming in this morning. And Zachary, will you take us through this one?
I will, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so this development permit application, 2023-030, is for the construction of two 15 square meter additions to a manufactured home and the development of a 15 square meter shed. The parcel is located in Division 5, approximately 2 kilometers west of Brooks. The parcel sits within the boundary of the intermunicipal development plan area with the city of Brooks. In the residential manufactured home park district of the land use bylaw, addition as a discretionary use requires a permit and must be approved by the Municipal Planning Commission. However, the shed, the accessory building, is a permitted use in the residential manufactured home park district. And the recommendation is that approval be given to this development permit for the following reasons. It complies with the municipal development plan. It is suitable for the purposes for which it is intended in the land use bylaw, and no objections have been received from adjacent landowners or referral agencies. So the purpose of the residential manufactured home park district is to permit and regulate manufactured home parks comprised of multiple lots. Here, the AER said there are no abandoned well sites within 100 meters of the proposed development. No wetlands were identified, and there were no historically significant or environmentally significant areas near the development. The proposed development meets all required setbacks, and circulations have been extended to adjacent property owners, the Eastern Irrigation District, County Municipal Services, ATCO Gas, and Torxit Energy. No comments have been received. The response options are to 1, approve, 2, refuse, or 3 to table this development permit application. And the conditions of the approval are that it is effective on June 29th, 2023, must be located as shown on the site plan, that the proposed development complies with all federal, provincial, and municipal statutes, regulation codes, and standards. That the applicant must obtain all construction permits applicable. That any additional development shall require prior approval of a separate permit application. Condition that all the setbacks are maintained as per the land use bylaw. The construction must begin before June 29th, 2024 and be completed before June 29th, 2025.
Thank you, Zachary. Mr. Hunt, did you have anything to add to this application or? Okay, if we have any questions, we know you're here. MPC, do you have any questions of this application or give me a direction? Please. Dan.
I'd motion we approve this as recommended.
Thank you for the motion. Any further discussion? Questions? All in favor of Dan's motion, please indicate. That is carried. We had no post agenda. Any need for in camera?
Holly? Holly. Kelly? Not a post agenda so much as Holly had asked earlier about the when subdivisions are applied for, asking about the reasoning for the shape and whatnot. I think if that's a requirement for approval, then we should ask. If it's not a requirement for approval, then maybe we should just don't be asking those questions. It's kind of overreaching a little bit, I think. So if it's not a requirement, I don't think it's our business to be asking.
Holly?
I guess my reasoning, Dan, was we had one in the past that actually in effect on agricultural land, what could be used, because the way it was drawn, it was cutting out some agricultural land potential development. So I think if we're looking at development down the road, I think it's not a bad idea to know why they're thinking so we can understand the direction, perhaps help us in our planning as well. So I wasn't requesting as a nosy thing, it was more from a planning perspective. So that's where I was coming from, right or wrong.
And just to be fair, or to share with you, I've always appreciated straight lines. I think it's good for planning and development, future. It's great for land titles. I really don't like jagged edges, but that's maybe a personal thing. I don't know. Planning and development, what do they say at the higher ends of things in your educated world? Maria.
Justification for taking agricultural land out of production, I think, is important when it comes to applications, because that is a big thing that we look at, that no agricultural land is taken out of production. So I think that there is merit to having certain instances explained for MPC for their decision making. And I suppose in the case of the subdivision that was just presented, MPC always has the ability to go back to the applicant and say, we want these to look different. So I guess it's in your, it's your ability if that's what you want to do. If that makes sense.
We will talk about it then. Sounds like it's a discussion item, maybe. I like to know. I like to know why the jagged edges. I like to, you know, is it a case of whatever the case, right? In this case, I think it was highway frontage in the subdivisions application, you know, that highway, and they, it's a 3-numbered highway, so they require a certain setback. And anyway, let's carry on with the agenda. We have information items. Any questions on that? Holly does.
It said they'd removed some land on the Solarkrafte. Do you know where it is? It's changed in fair, but I looked and I couldn't tell what was gone from the application.
There was a parcel of land that has a pivot on it. It is, well, like this, anyway, that parcel was removed, an irrigated parcel.
Thanks for that. Any other questions on that item? Seeing none. Any questions in the queue, Todd?
Good morning. We have no questions for you today.
Okay. Okay. I will adjourn this meeting.